engaged citizens, participants who take part democratically, citizens who care about things, citizens who may be angry about some things, who may support other sorts of kinds of things. And the moment we have that and we take those citizens seriously, it seems to me the institutions themselves will follow fairly naturally onwards. There's of course a discussion about what's the best way of organising them and so on, but at the basis of all this should be citizens who are concerned about what's going on in their countries, in Europe, in the world, and that's about a whole set of issues. And I don't think there'd be any sense in supposing that that kind of engagement is much reduced at the moment. If anything, in Copenhagen recently, like in lots of other places, we've seen that citizens are pretty angry about a whole series of different issues, or very, very concerned about a whole set of others. So it's a matter, I think, of taking the citizens' concerns and addressing them at the European level. One of the great things about the Lisbon Treaty having finally passed is that we might start talking about institutional questions of now and start talking about actual issues, the issues that people really care about, and showing that in fact it's a choice to be made at the European level, which perhaps can't be made at a number of other levels. And that's where I think I disagree with the more prudent heads in this semicircle about leaving various decisions at a national level or maintaining principal subsidiarity and so on. It seems to me that the motivation of citizens now depasses by a long way the national boundaries, and what we're talking about are European citizens at the very least, if not world citizens. One of the things that remains implicit in this, rather unquestioned in this title towards Citizens Europe is, of course, who are the citizens one is talking about? Are they citizens of Europe? Are they citizens of the world? Are we talking about a Europe that should be responsible to citizens throughout the world? And what are the mechanisms by which that might happen? What's the opportunity of Europe for defining a whole new concept of citizenship, which is not based on where you're born, perhaps, not based on what your passport is, who your father was, but rather on your taking part in a common space, in a common world where decisions increasingly taken on a local level have global implications. I think the other thing I could do usefully is to say how, regardless of all that, European Alternatives is trying to push to the limit the potentialities that are inside the Lisbon Treaty, for example. One of the problems with European treaties, it seems to me, in the past is that some institutions, for example the Parliament, are given a lot of powers which sometimes they don't use because they're not pushed from the outside to use to the full extent what they're given. So, to take a couple of examples that have been brought up already, the Citizens' Initiative, we as European Alternatives are very committed to try to use this to the full, at the very least to emphasise some of the limitations of the thinking that is behind the Citizens' Initiative. The moment we started thinking of a potential Citizens' Initiative, we ran up straight away against one of the limitations. In fact, we were talking with the Green Party at the European level about the idea of holding a Citizens' Initiative regarding migration, an issue that a number of citizens are quite worked up about in Calais, for example, in France, with what's been happening there. But I mean, all around Europe, it's a huge issue. Immediate question that comes up is, well, if we went to go and ask undocumented migrants themselves to sign the petition, would that be allowed? Would it not be allowed? Would they count? Is it everybody who's present on the European territory? Do we have to ask for their passports? Right. Another one of the concerns that we're interested in is this. Is given that the threshold is reasonably high, 1 million signatures from a significant number of countries, that the mechanism by which one can go and collect the signatures should be sufficiently easy that relatively small initiatives like European Alternatives, for example, would be able to do such a thing. That it somehow, citizens' initiatives shouldn't just be the exclusive concern of huge organisations which have a massive capacity to go all around Europe and collect these signatures, but rather there should be a sufficiently easy mechanism for them to be collected. Inside the Lisbon Treaty as well, there is some changes regarding the European Council President, you'll have noticed. One of the refreshing things about recent news, I think, is that if one was concerned about about citizens not taking an interest in Europe, the sense of deflation after the selection of the President of the Council and the High Representative, however much of a red herring the President of the Council may have been, there was nonetheless a Europe-wide sort of sigh that was audible, whether one agrees with it or not, shows that in fact European citizens do have this expectation of Europe, whether it's slightly misplaced or not. They have an expectation that which is being let down. And so in some sense, the European citizens are well ahead of the European institutions in their expectations. Inside the treaty, it says that the Council President will go and present himself to the Parliament after each of the European Council meetings. This is part of the idea that the Parliament and the Council should work closer together in a decision. One of the things we are pressing for as European alternatives is that the Council President should undergo a kind of Prime Minister's question time as part of his being heard in the Parliament. That's something that already happens with the Commission President, but is not pushed to the limits of how effective that could be. The same thing should happen with the President of the Council, and that should be taken much more seriously. Last thing I'll say is that with the selection of the Commission itself, one of the disappointing things, aside from there not being alternative candidates for the President, is that anybody in the outside world would now think that the European Commission has been selected and that's it, it's the end of the matter. Whereas in fact there's a whole process of the European Parliament vetting these commissioners, and the European Parliament itself has to approve the commissioners before they're the Commission. And that process has almost been completely forgotten about because the Parliament doesn't seem to be able to raise its voice loudly enough. If you go to the Parliament website, it does say this. We're pleased to see the potential candidates for the Commission. We're looking forward to interviewing them. But no one has noticed that. And so one of the things we are doing is pressing for that process to be taken seriously and that citizens should be engaged in that process of vetting the commissioners and trying to make them to commit to various things that the Parliament wants.